What does it mean to make the blind see? That's what we're going to talk about today in John 9. Hi everyone, this is Jill from the Northwoods. Welcome back. Thank you for watching this slow roll through the Bible, one small step at a time. So John 9 is really challenging the way we think about suffering, healing, and what it means to really see. So it starts out with Jesus walking along and he sees a man who has been blind since birth. And right away, his disciples start asking him questions that reflect, I think, a lot of what people see and even see today about suffering, human suffering. If we see someone suffering, are they suffering because they disobeyed God? Or, oh, we told you that if you do this bad thing, you're going to suffer, that kind of thing. And like I said, the disciples of any rabbi would follow that rabbi around asking questions around them. Some of them were thought out ahead of time, and some of them just came upon them as they walked around. They asked, Rabbi, who sinned? Is it this man or his parents that, made him be born blind? And that's a huge question. Like I said, even for today, when we see people go through something that is painful, that is suffering, it's tempting for us too to say, what did they do wrong? Or if we go through a period suffering, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong, God? Did I make you mad? And that's not going to be the case. This is a really human reflex to assign blame. And we have seen places where pastors have said in very public ways, this bad thing happened to this town, to this area, because they sinned. And that's going to be something that we're going to challenge right here. So we assign blame. We love to assign blame, and God is not assigning blame in that case. It kind of reminds me, and I'm just going to give a short analogy, that let's say you had a kid who got a brand new toy, and the kid gets out the hammer, and dad's like, well, what are you going to do with that? Oh, I'm going to hit the toy with the hammer because that looks like fun. And then the dad's like, I would suggest you don't do that. And that would, in fact, be something against me because I just bought that for you to hit that toy with a hammer. Does the father allow it to happen, knowing that the kid's going to break the toy? He's going to come running to him, say, my toy's broken. Or does he prevent it from happening, take the hammer away and send him to his room so he gets rid of this urge to break it with a hammer? And it's not that God or the father authored this idea of hitting the toy with the hammer. Maybe this is a bad analogy, but instead he is allowing it to happen to show a very valuable lesson. You hit your nice stuff with hammers, it's going to get wrecked. I didn't make it happen, but that was the result of what you decided to do. Maybe there we go. And then Jesus answers in an unexpected way. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but it happened so that the works of God may be displayed in him. So I didn't cause it. God didn't cause it. His parents didn't sin. He didn't sin. He didn't do anything to make it happen. In general, our sinful world has caused disease and hardship and many terrible things to happen to people because we just live a life that God never intended us to live outside of the Garden of Eden. This was not the world that God intended, but he allowed it to happen. And the big takeaway is that this man's blindness is not a punishment. Instead, it's an opportunity for healing, but also personal transformation. And God's glory will be revealed when that happens. So the whole question is turned upside down. Suffering isn't always about sin. It, like I said, typically results because of sin in general. And so the whole question is upside down. It isn't that suffering is about sin. Sometimes it's about what God can do despite the cause, regardless of the cause. And it doesn't mean that God causes suffering. It means that he can redeem it. And there's a real subtle difference here. And just because God allows something to happen doesn't mean he wills it. Like I said, like the father who doesn't want his kid to hit his toy with the hammer, but maybe he's going to allow it to happen in the name of a bigger message. And maybe he's going to buy that kid the toy again and give a gift that that kid did not deserve, that kind of thing. There is a difference between permission and intention. And that's a tension that we live in this world. We have free will, and our free will is allowed to happen. And so then Jesus says that this is the urgency of this moment. He says, quote, we must work the way of him who sent me while it's day, but night's coming where no one can work. And he's saying, let's do what we can right now while Jesus is here. While Jesus is with us, let's get as much done as we can get done. It's not going to heal the whole world. It's not going to be visible to the whole world, but let's get as much done as we can. And this is really personal. He knows what's coming as long as I'm in this world. I am the light of the world. John loves to say that, first of all, Jesus is the Son of God, but second, he's the light of the world. Now comes this big moment that is shocking. Jesus spits on the ground, makes mud with the soil, and then rubs it in the man's eye and tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. We've talked about the pool of Siloam before. Siloam means sent. It's a subtle message that basically the God of this world sent here to this earth, but now is sending this man to go to this pool. So we think about this is why Jesus used mud. That was the thing that always confused me the most. Some people he healed remotely. Go home, your child is healed. Some people he would grab their hand, he would touch their shoulder, he would touch something and then heal them. In some cases he would stick his fingers, in the ears or on the eyes. But this man got mud. It's a physical sensory method. And why? I think it's because the man was blind. He couldn't see that Jesus was going to do a gesture or something like that. He was giving that man something very tactile, something very real to that man, so he would understand something real is happening here. And Jesus meets us where we are. I think that different people need different kinds of miracles. And I think Jesus and God knows who we are and connects to us in ways that we understand. So this man says to Jesus, so this so this man then does what Jesus says, goes in, washes, and comes back seeing. I mean, can you imagine that moment where you first see light, faces, color? I always love those videos you see on YouTube where they put glasses or earpieces in a kid for the very first time. And for the first time, the kid could either see or hear, and a huge smile comes on their face. It's really heartwarming. This man's life now is completely changed. So his neighbors had kind of an unusual reactions. Some people would be, I can't believe it. Is this the man who used to sit there and beg? Understand what was happening. And the guy's like, no, 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 it's me. I'm the one. I was blind and now I see. Famous hymn with those words in it. They ask him, how did this happen? And the man says, well, man called Jesus, he made some mud and then he told me to go wash and now I see. Well, where is this Jesus? And the blind man says, well, I don't know, probably because he couldn't see. So, I don't know where he is now. And that was the idea. I don't think this man, obviously ever saw Jesus' face. So he doesn't even know what the guy looks like. And now things are about to escalate because the people go tell the Pharisees and the Pharisees get involved in the story. And every time they get it, they have that spiritual pride. They just cannot get past, the idea that they're not right. They believe that this blindness is more than just a physical limitation or a physical illness. There has to be a reason for it. So the Pharisees interrogate this man, and right away, their main concern isn't the miracle, isn't the fact that this guy was born blind and now can see. Oh, yeah, it happened on Sabbath. And because Jesus has a habit of healing people on Sabbath, or at least those are the healings that get written down, mostly because they came to confrontations. It drove the Pharisees crazy. In their eyes, making mud was a work, like, oh, you can't make mud in the ground. Oh gosh. And so then even though this blind man could see, a lifetime of this illness was broken from him, they just want to challenge this rule breaking instead of the life-changing salvation God gave this man. And so then some of them say, well, the man can't be from God. He doesn't even know how to keep the Sabbath. We know how to keep the Sabbath. He doesn't even know how to keep the Sabbath. He has to be from the devil, is the idea. And others say, well, then if that's the case, how could a sinner perform such signs? Remember, John likes the word signs instead of miracles. Signs meaning pointing to him being God, being the Son of God. And it's not just a miracle that came out of the blue, but it's a sign, like an arrow pointing right to Jesus. So now there's division among them and they're debating this point. And so then they ask the formerly blind man what he thinks about it. And the guy says he's a prophet. This is a bold claim because prophets were, we can name them. Nahum, there were prophets Ezekiel, there we could name them on, a couple hands of how many prophets there were. He's a prophet. And he's now going from begging to testifying about who Jesus is. This is a life change for him. And the Pharisees are not satisfied. They don't even believe that he was blind. So they call his parents in. And his parents have a very disappointing reaction to all of this. So they come in and testify, yeah, he was born blind. That's exactly right. But they don't want to say how he's healed. They're afraid they're going to get booted out of the temple. They are afraid of the Jewish leaders who has decided that anyone who acknowledges Jesus and his signs and that he's the Messiah are going to be put out of the synagogue. And that was a big deal. And it means being cut off from your community. So his parents sort of deflected from the answer and say, well, he's of age. He's a man. Go ask him. Don't talk to us anymore. And so they go back to the man. And at this time, the conversation gets even more direct. The Pharisees say, well, give glory to God. We know that the man is a sinner. And the man replies, one of the most powerful lines in scripture, and certainly in John, whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. But the one thing I know is I was blind. Now I see. So I can see the results. I can see the actions of this. It's simple, it's honest, and it silences basically this huge theological debate that was going on. So they ask him again, how did Jesus do this? And now the man gets a little sarcastic. I have told you already. Why won't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become one of his disciples? Which is obviously not true. So this doesn't go over well. And then they insult him and they say, you're his disciples, but we're disciples of Moses. We're better. We follow Moses, who is the true leader from God, the giver of law. So they don't even know, it says, where Jesus came from. Oh, I don't even know. And of course they know where Jesus came from. They know he's from Nazareth, and they know that he was ministering in the Galilee area. Everybody knows this at this point. They just mean that question, is he from heaven or is he from earth? We don't know. So the man responds again with more boldness and says, well, that's astonishing. You don't know where he comes from. Yet he opened my eyes. And we know that God doesn't listen to sinners. He listens to those who worship him and does his will. If this man weren't from God, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't have done this kind of a sign, of a miracle. From someone who spent his life begging, this is an incredible statement. I mean, not only is he healed physically, he's standing up spiritually. There's a new boldness in him. And the Pharisees, they can't take it. And they say, well, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they throw him out. Oh, so then the story doesn't even end there. Jesus hears what happens, finds the man after they toss him out. And that's the part that matters, is Jesus goes back to him again. And he asks him, do you believe in the Son of Man, meaning the Messiah? And the man says, well, who is he, sir? That I could believe in him. If he's here, let me know. So Jesus says, you have seen him, and he is speaking to you. This man then says, Lord, I believe, and starts to worship him. There's very few people that Jesus, particularly at this point in his ministry, comes right out and tells them, I am Jesus. I am the Messiah. I am the Son of God. But he does with this man. And to worship a human being is sacrilege, right? This man knew immediately what he was talking about. And so this is, like I said, more than just a healing, it's a conversation. And he starts by calling Jesus a man, then a prophet, then someone sent by God, and then finally Lord, and starts to worship him. You can see that as his physical eyes were open, his spiritual eyes were open too. Now he sees Jesus for who he really is. And then Jesus said a sobering statement. He said, for judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, but those who see may become blind. The Pharisees overhear this and think, well, wait a minute. Is he saying that we're blind too? Like I said, they're deep thinkers. They got the analogy that Jesus was pointing at. And Jesus answers, he says, well, if you were blind, you wouldn't have any guilt. But You say, we see, there's your guilt. You see what's going on around you. You understand what's going around you, and you reject it, is the idea. If you were completely like this blind man, where you just didn't know who God was, didn't know who the Messiah was, that's one thing. But and you're still deflecting, you're still fighting this whole thing I'm trying to do right here. He's basically saying that if they were blind, they could be helped. But because they see clearly and still reject the truth, they are truly the blind ones now, and it's steeped in their sin. And so, what do we take from that? I think it's a warning, but it's an invitation too. None of his warnings are you're condemned forever and that's the end of you kind of thing. They're always a chance for us to come back so that we can begin to see things clearly. So we become less certain about the things that we think we know and maybe miss about what God is doing right there in front of us. It's an invitation to admit to our blindness and our need and let Jesus open up our eyes. It reminds me that spiritual insight doesn't come from education or religious, even services. Not saying any of those things are bad, but instead it's sourced at humility. That when we start there, God meets us where we're at, just like He met the blind man. And so I'm going to meditate on that this week. What I'm going to pray about is that we don't end up being the kind of people that say, I have all the answers. I know everything. Even as I'm studying the scriptures, I'm trying to learn more about what God says to us and wants us to do. I hope I always have that humility. And I'm going to think about and pray about what Jesus has done in my own life. And that's the testimony I want to give to other people. And what I'm going to share with others is that testimony. I'm a witness to what God has done. You don't know me from before when I wasn't a Christian, and how sarcastically, scientifically, all the ways, like there's no faith, there's no religion, there's no God, there's nothing like that. And instead, for me to believe, like I said, I think someone at my class reunion said that if you put before them, Jill's going to become a Coke addict or Jill's going to become a Christian, I would have probably picked the Coke addict. There was no faith in me and there was no interest in faith. And I'm going to share that with others. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining me. Please remember to like this, subscribe, send me a message. I just got an email this week, and I was so glad to hear from someone who is planning on starting this slow roll through the Bible. I would love to hear what kind of tools I can help with you. If there's something I could do differently that would make your experience better, I'd love to hear that too. And until next time, let's keep asking the questions for Jesus to open up our eyes, not just once, but every day.